before you even think about world building or planning out your epic quests, there's a super important step that a lot of DMs tend to overlook. And skipping it? That's how you can end up with a campaign that never feels like it truly clicks. Today, I'm gonna show you the super secret sciencey step that I use before I even start planning. And why yes, there is a form. But this one thing ensures that my campaigns land with my players every time. Because a great game isn't just about starting with a cool setting, it's about engagement. By the end of this video, you'll have a simple, actionable method that'll help make sure your next campaign is something your players genuinely love. So here's a hard truth. A lot of DMs start campaign planning by thinking about their own ideas first. But no matter how cool and exciting your ideas are, a campaign only works if it fits the group. So how do you figure out what kind of group you have and what they'll actually enjoy? That's where my method comes in. And listen, if you've already played with the same group for a while, you might already know what works for you guys. A lot of this might be overkill for you. But if you're with a new group or players that struggle to articulate what they actually enjoy, this process is a game changer. Like I said, your ideal campaign isn't just about what you want. It's about where your interests and your players' interests overlap. But how do you actually find that overlap? It starts with two key steps: figuring out what excites you and figuring out what excites them. Easier said than done, but once we have both, we can pinpoint the campaign's sweet spot. And that way the rest of your planning will be a breeze. But first, it's time for fun with forms, starring me, Stephanie. If you've been watching this channel for a minute, you probably know that I love forms. I did a lot of data science in college, so I'm deeply biased towards using science for fun. But here's the real reason I love them. They take the pressure off of players having to have an answer for you about something on the spot. So instead of guessing or telling you what you want to hear, they get time to actually think about what they'd love to see in a game. Or even about other types of media like video games or books that really inspire them. So don't sleep on this form. I made one just for you guys to copy. There's a link to it below in the description, because soon you will love forms too. One mistake I see a lot of DMs make when they're gathering a group: pitching just one campaign idea and then trying to convince everyone else that it's gonna be a lot of fun. Bad move. Instead, use what I call the 3 concepts trick. Here's what you do. Instead of pitching just one idea, you pick 3 high-level concepts that you'd like to run. So for example, you can ask your players to rank among 3 concepts like a Middle-earth campaign where Sauron is still in power, high seas adventures with lots of unpredictable wild magic, and a political intrigue in a dystopian fantasy cyberpunk setting. And to really sell the ideas, I like to make these little mini mood boards and a quick write-up. That way my players can kind of see my vision and inspirations for what each of these campaigns would be. And I'll also link below to a sample that I made for my players in real life, because videos are fake life. But you might be wondering, why 3? Do you guys think my 3 looks weird? Well, it's because science is here to strike again. Studies show that people feel a lot more invested in decisions that they get to weigh in on. So even if they're just picking between options that you created, they'll get to feel some ownership over the final result. Studies also show that the tubes that be will show you my face more often if you like and subscribe to this video. Make sure to also hit the bell because YouTube wants to make really sure you actually like me. But here's the thing, setting isn't everything. You need to also understand how your players actually want to play the game. And that's where my player questionnaire comes in. It asks key questions to help suss out things like, are they more into deep roleplay or tactical combat? Do they prefer open sandboxes or a more tight linear story? What kind of stories or challenges hook them the most? And I designed this questionnaire to help me spot patterns in a group. So this isn't about putting individual players into little boxes. I want you to think of it more like a heat map, a way to see where your group's potential interests overlap. And if you're worried about interest imbalances, like maybe one player lives for combat but the others are all here for high drama, This lets you spot that early. That way you can start focusing on blending these different playstyles and helping create a game that keeps everyone engaged. And my particular questionnaire is a mashup of player types from the DMG and from Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering. He did it to us on purpose, guys. In the questionnaire, I also included a scoring key for you guys. That way you can more easily analyze your group's results. But one thing to keep in mind is most players aren't all or nothing, which is why I did one of those sliding scale type answers. But if you want to learn more about the different player types, Ginny D recently did a fantastic video breaking them down in more detail. I highly recommend checking it out. But DMs, you should actually take this questionnaire too. It doesn't directly translate to DM styles, but it'll help you start thinking about what you love to run the most, or maybe areas you tend to struggle with. And if you want to go deeper on the DM side, I highly recommend checking out the Dungeon Dude's videos on what class is your Dungeon Master, as well as D&D Short's video on the 7 types of DMs. They're both more like fun-focused videos, but I think they're really great for getting you to think about what you like to prep for campaigns and sessions. That way you don't get burned out as easily and can focus on the things you actually enjoy doing. Let's ward off the burnout, folks. But what do you even do with all of this info? That's where the next step comes in. So here's where things get really fun. Once I have my campaign concepts and my players have all finished their questionnaires, I like to name my group's play style. So an example. As a DM, I might call myself the Weaver, because I really love getting to weave player backstories and ideas into my campaign. I really love making it feel seamless, like everything was part of the plan the whole time. And my group, based on their results, they're a mix of creature, curious, intrigue-loving explorers. So I'm gonna refer to them as Monster Hunter Jones. And let's say they're most curious about having a Lost City of Atlantis-inspired campaign. That might lead me to naming us the Web Walkers. And yeah, it's goofy, but to me, this is like one simple term that immediately conjures like the ideas of exploration and danger and traversing this interconnected game world of myths and monsters. It's just a simple phrase that gets me right into that mindset. So why should you bother doing this? Because once you name a style, you can shape the campaign to fit it without all of the guesswork. It's almost like branding. And I got the idea to do this because when I originally started college, I was actually a fashion design major. So if I was describing something to someone as Rococo punk, you can pretty much immediately tell if something fits that idea or not just by looking at it. The same goes for your group. If you name your group's vibe, you instantly know if something you're planning fits in that or not. And this can also help you narrow down campaign starting points a lot more quickly. So for example, the Webwalkers Atlantis style campaign could be about uncovering proof of a lost civilization, or it could be about chasing legends of a world-altering artifact, or it could even be about tracking down the source of terrifying deep-sea creatures that have suddenly started appearing on land. But I can take this idea of my joy of weaving stories and actions of my players together, and the things that my players have now expressed that they really, really like, and have it fit into so many different settings and styles of games. All I have to do is focus on honoring their main interests like 85% of the time. And this isn't meant to be some hard limitation. It's meant to be something that helps you home in on that particular thing that'll have your players raving about their times together at the table for years to come. So hopefully you can see how this approach can help you create irresistible campaigns for your players. By now you should have 3 solid high concept ideas, a solid understanding of your players, and a playstyle brand name. So what's next? In the next video, I'll show you how to turn all of this into a full-blown campaign premise, with a focus on empowering your players to bring amazing story hooks to the table. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you haven't already, check out these bad boys next. I don't know what side they're on.